Alright, hello again and welcome to Different Beat. I am Tim.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And today we're going to be talking about what I have a feeling is going to be a highly divisive game between the two of us.
Oh,
which
that's
is
the word.
The Order 1886.
The Order 1886.
Okay. So, since I played the game first, and I was honestly, between the two of us, the one that was really excited for this game. Beth had no interest in this game pretty much at all.
No,
but I was pretty hyped for it. Ever since I saw its preview back at E3 2013, I was very much looking forward to the Order. I'm going to talk up this game quite a bit. There are a lot of things about it I really like, but I will also pretense that with it is not a perfect game. There's a lot of flaws and a lot of things that are blatantly wrong with it, but a lot of things that, in my opinion, are also really, really well done about it. So let's talk about presentation. First of all, when that game starts, the presentation, and that carries on throughout the entire game, is fantastic. I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and just dwell on graphics. The graphics are incredible. But I'm talking in terms of the polish of the world, the scene designs, the environments you go through, all beautiful. I mean, just a lot of thought definitely went into designing the world of that game.
Just however, with the characters that aren't named.
However, yes, I kind of agree with that because I know where you're going with that. But I will say though, and I know this. I mean, this is sort of a gameplay thing, so I'm sort of going off tangent a little bit when I'm talking about design. But one thing I think that is you can tell the developer really wanted you to pay attention to the fact they put so much thought into those designs, because there is a lot of forced walking segments in that game. I cannot think of a game off the top of my head where you spend more minutes clocked forcibly walking through environments. And I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. I mean, I kind of want to apologize for that, but I can't. Not as big of a deal killer to me, but it was still super annoying. There was a ton of walking sequences in that game. But presentation, beautiful, beautiful game. A couple really, really weird things. I don't know if you noticed this when you were playing through the Order, but the textures, aside from when you climb up out of the streets like we talked about, that one was blatantly bad. But for the most part, they're all really well done. But did you notice that in any reflective surface of the game, your character doesn't show up? You have no reflection in that whole game. You can walk in front of any mirror in the entire game. It will reflect everything around you, but not you. You have no reflection.
I didn't notice that, honestly.
I noticed that in the first opening, and it bothered the crap out of me. I was like, why the hell can I see myself in a mirror? But I was like, whatever. I don't know why it's that way. I'm sure they know about it, and it was just sort of, maybe, it'll notice. I don't know. Music. Okay, music I thought was really good. A lot of somber string music. It sort of fit the timepiece and the mood of the game. I thought it was nice. I really felt though like the more action-packed sequences in the game, where you're under a lot of fire. I really felt like the music sort of under-delivered there because I didn't have a lot of excitement to it. It's like the whole soundtrack was pretty somber, which fit most of the tone. But even when it should have been a lot more upbeat and exciting, it was more upbeat, but it didn't add anything, I didn't think. Lighting, beautiful. I don't know if I've played a game that has as good of lighting as the Order did. I mean, everything from the shadow to the atmospheric mist, or when you're like going through a lounge and there's like this haze of smoke, and you can see like the sun rays through it. It's just beautiful game. I mean, I know I'm sort of going back over visuals again, but I just can't stress that enough. Beautiful game. Let's go ahead and talk about characters. Okay, so cast. This is where I don't know. It's like I have a lot of good things to say, but a lot of bad things to say too. So your main character, Grayson Sir Galahad. All right, I liked Grayson. I thought he was a good character. He's obviously the pivot point for the story, and everything that you do centers around him primarily. He's the character you play throughout the entire time. And good character. I liked his design. I mean, I liked the way he looked. I really appreciated the story aspect in terms of the alternate Arthurian legend they had going on, which is pretty cool. And like the fact that, they've lived as long as they have, and the reason they've lived as long as they have, and just tying it all back to the Knights of the Round Table, I thought was really, really cool. Because I actually didn't know that before going into that game. Like,
no,
I knew the Order was some sort of order, but I had no idea that it was going to be the Knights of the Round Table. And so I was like, okay, when I first got to that point where that's delivered in the story, I was like, yes, I'm happy about this. Sadly, a lot of my favorite knights who I were really, really hoping to see in the game at some point didn't make an appearance, which was pretty sad. But
to be fair, it's like they wouldn't, even if they had someone call that, they wouldn't really be those knights, because even Galahad isn't the original.
No, he's not the original Galahad.
So it's like, even if they had Gawain,
but you still,
it's
okay. Okay, well, you
but
can't. Why do you do this to me? You're trying to bait me into these debates.
No, I'm just saying.
Sir Gawain is not in the game, which is super sad because he was mutually our favorite. We pronounce it different, but we still love the guy
Gawain
dearly.
is a character I love, but my point is, all I'm saying is, even now that I played, even if I saw Gawain, it wouldn't have really mattered to me, because this Gawain isn't the Arthurian legend Gawain.
But you still have to be worthy of the namesake. I mean, it wouldn't have been the Gawain, but it would still been somebody who was worthy enough to carry Gawain's name, which in my opinion would have been like, I'll give this guy a chance. Even if he's not the Sir Gawain, I would give him a chance because he was worthy enough to carry
I
the
don't
name.
know if that was... I didn't get that from the game, that you had, like, each knight had to be, you know, you have to be worthy of that particular knight. To me, it felt like you prove yourself worthy, and when they have a knight's name free, you get it. Given one of the story elements, they make a big deal out of it. It's like...
Okay, so we're sort of side-tangenting right now into the aspects of the storyline, but I'll say this to sort of counter that. Notice that, okay, so Marquis Lafayette, who's the Frenchman, who is super annoying, at least until the end of the game.
I loved him, actually. The first time you meet him, for about 2 minutes, I wanted to kick him in the crotch and
Yeah, but towards the end of the game, he's awesome.
Yeah,
but at the start of the game, when you first get introduced to him, you're like, ugh, this guy.
Yeah.
But notice that he was under Sir Percival. I mean, he was being looked after by... He was his protege. He had to be approved by him and be considered a candidate before he could ever become a knight. So, I was saying, Grayson, Sir Galahad, cool guy. I liked him a lot. A lot of the supporting cast early on, I wanted to really like a lot, but as the story went on, I kind of really dropped my I sort of liked the relationship that Igraine and Galahad had. You know, it's like you couldn't tell if there was like some sort of like romantic tension there, if they just really looked up to one another. They sort of had this like flirty thing going on, but also not at all. It was really weird. But, you know, it was nice. It was different, because in a lot of games I really felt like, oh yeah, there's romance, or no, there's no romance. This one, it's sort of like you wondering, like, if, maybe? I mean, there was not really a clear answer ever given if there was any history there between them, but there could have been, and I kind of like that it sort of just left that there, but didn't really force anything on you about that. However, I ended up by the end of the game really not liking Igraine.
Yeah, see, this is actually one of the few things we will agree on. It's like, I'm a huge proponent of female characters, strong female characters. I am a woman, and I'm a woman, so when you first meet Igraine, I was really excited for her. I was like, okay, this is going to be who I fall in love with during the game, and this is who I'm going to root for, and wish I was playing. About halfway through the game, that was no longer the case. I wasn't down on Igraine. The last 45 minutes, though, of the game, Igraine pretty much becomes insufferable, and I really ended up loathing the character by the end, which was sad for me, because I went in thinking, you know, I'm going to love this character once I met her, and then I couldn't stand her.
Yeah, but you see, and I think part of the thing that sort of drives that home even more was that they almost had to, like, make her character less awesome to make her fit the last word. Because throughout the entire game, I mean, she's very open-minded and inquisitive, and very much, like, helping Galahad, like, investigate everything that's going on. But then it's like the moment the tables turn, she just goes mental turn off, and I'm just gonna hunt you down and get you. It's like almost like her ability to be inquisitive is just gone at that point. It's like they just needed, for story purposes, to turn her into an angry, betrayed person.
There are two characters I liked in the game. Two characters I thought Ready at Dawn did really well on. One of them is Percival. He seems really passionate, really strong, but he also seemed to be he seemed to be a person of honor, and he really went for what he believed to be right. And he did it in a way that was, you know, standoffish at times.
That's because he hated the politics of it. He was not a guy who was down with politics.
But I respected Percival. And the other character I liked was Lucan. And I think that, especially towards the end of the game, certain things happen with the character that I'll avoid spoiling. But at least for me, he became a lot more sympathetic than anyone not named Percival. Igraine wasn't. Galahad doesn't really strike me as... I didn't sympathize with him other than his rage. But rage is so common in video games, so it's always the driving force. That even if it was good rage, it's well acted, and it's well written, and it is.
It is.
Rage can't make me attached to a character anymore. If it could, then Gabriel Belmont and Kratos would be my favorite characters ever, and I can't stand either one of them. But again, rage, it's not enough. And there needs to be something more behind the rage. And for Galahad, there was a little bit, but it wasn't enough. Percival, he had more than rage. I mean, he was stern, he was strong, but there was a deep undercurrent of, doing what was right in his mind that existed aside from the anger, which I think Galahad was missing. And especially Lucan, despite this how the story progresses, was really sympathetic, because even if you hate certain elements, it's like those elements are there for a reason with this character. And at the end of the game, Galahad, you don't feel for Galahad, or I didn't. He gets the Batman ending.
He does kind of get a Batman ending.
He gets the Batman ending. Igraine is so incredibly batshit that I didn't care. Another character that I'll touch on, because it's not really spoilers, is the Chancellor. He's so shallow that there was no depth to him.
He's essentially just the villainous principal of the school. Essentially, he's the guy who he's in charge, but he's portrayed as douchey. So you're like, screw you, stand against authority, which Percival obviously did, but for very different reasons that weren't just juvenile like that.
Yeah,
but still, it's very.
I will say the villain. I won't say who it is, but the villain. You kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. You didn't like the villain. I thought the villain was possibly the most well-written, because he's not in the game very much. I mean, you see him.
No, he's very much a ta-da villain.
Yeah, you see his personage in the game a lot, but you don't interact with the character all that much.
No.
And I thought, not the fact that he was the villain wasn't any good, but how they tied it into history was very good.
Yeah, see, and that's another thing I wanted to touch on. One thing that I thought was really cool about The Order is it's totally a fantasy, totally fiction game, but I liked some of its nods to actual history. And we talked about this a little bit before. Like, one of the characters in the game that is sort of a companion of The Order, not a member of it, but who develops their tech, Nikola Tesla, who any nerd out there loves for his crazy ideas and also, brilliant innovation for the technology that we use today. And, one of the things in real life that was so prominent about the time of Tesla's life was his and Edison's feud that they had going on, which is in The Order, and it's even mentioned.
In fact, that is your introduction to Tesla. You walk in and Galahad comments on it. It's like, so how's your friend Edison? And Tesla is very snarky about it. I mean, he's pretty much like, F that guy.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool little element they had in the game.
Yeah, and also, like, one of the member of the Orders, one of the non-Order counselors was Darwin. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
A little nod to history there, too. So it's like non-fictional characters in this fictional world, and the time period is about right, too, and so it worked. It just worked. It was just sort of nice. It was like oh, hey, yeah, I know that name, and how neat that they worked it in, so that was pretty cool. So back to gameplay. So, smooth game. Technical flaws it didn't really lack. However, I'll say the game's largest flaw, easily, is that as much love and polish went into the design of the game, none of that polish went into any sort of innovation in terms of game mechanic. The Order 1886, if you haven't played it yet, is the plain vanilla bean cover-based shooter. I mean, there's no gimmicks, there's nothing special about it. It is just take cover, pop out of cover, shoot people, and that's all it is. That's it. I mean, that's pretty much the whole game with the exception of some QTEs that are thrown in there. And probably my biggest disappointment in the game is when it was first teased back in 2013. I mean, yeah, you didn't really see the enemies behind the fog, but it sort of gave you this idea that you're going to be spending a lot more time fighting supernatural enemies, whether they be werewolves or vampires or zombies or whatever like that. And while those things make an appearance in the game, 90% of your bullets in that game are thrown at just people, just regular old rebels, and that's really sad, actually, because I really feel like the real selling point of this game was to go sort of beyond what you're so used to in cover-based or even first-person shooters, where you're just taking out swarms and swarms of humans, because now it was like, we have this cool storyline plot, the Order exists to take out these supernatural creatures and defend mankind, but 90% of your bullets are being thrown at human beings, and that was really sad, honestly.
See, this is where we differ, because you, before I played the game, we talked about it, and you said you really wished you had fought more supernatural creatures.
Absolutely.
Specifically Lycans. I am of the mind... Okay, this is where I'm going to make everyone who watches this video hate me. I think that The Order 1886 is the worst designed video game from the AAA dev teams in the last 10 years. Everything about this game is designed for a person like me to hate it. There are several forced walking sections. There are several QTE sequences, including multiple boss fights that are nothing but QTEs. And then... you know, they don't know when to stop. A lot of people, and I haven't seen this much in reviews. The gameplay systems and how they set up some of their fights are very similar to Dragon Age 2. And what a lot of people had with the wave system was they just kept coming, and then they would spawn one that came up behind you. Like it's like it was enough. Like these battles are taking too long for no gain. I felt several encounters in The Order 1886 ended up using the same thing, where it just felt like waves. There's one section where you're going out and you're fighting between two broken buildings, and you're doing it for what feels like ever. I mean, they just keep coming, and it's like, okay, I get you want to make it intense, but you've lapped intense so many times. I'm now at just tedium. Just taking these guys out headshot over a headshot, and like, okay, can we please move on? And the worst thing was, because I had gotten excited for the werewolves, because you kept talking about the werewolf fights in that game are the worst thing about the game. They're worse than the QTEs, they're worse than the walking sections, because they all take place in the exact same environment. Somehow, every time you fight a Lycan, you end up in the same room filled with boxes with a little alcove to go through them. It's the exact same location every time. You're somehow there. You're doing the same thing. And then your kill animations, you have 2 of them. You walk up, stab them, kind of flip them around, and you do this for 3 Lycans per battle every time.
Well, it was technically 2 Lycans the first time you encountered.
Yeah, but the one ran away.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I can't imagine wanting to do more of this. Like action, it's tedious. It's awful. There's nothing good about it.
Okay. I get what you're saying. I do. So when I say I want us to fight more Lycans, I don't necessarily mean I want to fight more Lycans the exact way you fight Lycans. I'm saying replace humans in the environments in which you fight humans with more werewolves. Increase the number of kill animations, absolutely. I also don't think that having to stab them
box room,
should be mandatory. I think that you should just be able to put enough bullets in them to kill them. Or, you know, use like a grenade, just something besides walking up and stabbing them. I will, however, say this. Back to polish. It is very cool when you do kill a Lycan how in mid-death they start changing back to human. That is pretty cool. Like,
it's hard to give it value when you're killing them next to the same box stack that you killed a Lycan 5 hours ago.
Or the fact that you can stab this other Lycan, but while you're stabbing him, you're just totally immune to the other one shredding you up. Like, he just can't even touch you.
And what's worse, okay, this has to be touched on. They need more character models. I've stabbed the same fucker in the neck about 80 times in that game. The poor bastard kept taking a knife through the fucking through the what's this?
Clavicle
every time. The same dude with the reddish blonde beard kept walking by and go click and then dragging him over. And there's one kill animation where you stab them in the gut and it looks like you're moving about a 190-pound, 200-pound man with the knife instead of actually using your actual strength to like shove him up. It looks like you're like moving a piece of meat, being like, think it. It's really odd.
That is kind of odd.
Not to mention the stabbing animation. Like, I get stabbing animations. I love to stab people in games. Every woman and man does. I get it. But there's this weirdness about the stab animation in the orcs. It looks like it's a hot knife through butter. About halfway.
There's no resistance.
Yeah, it's just like bink right through the clavicle.
It's like a
and it
lightsaber.
Stops, and it doesn't even go all the way to the hilt. So it's just like this weird stopping point that's the exact same every time.
Again, but I mean that's such a small thing. But yes, when you see it over and over again.
On the little details.
No, I gave the love of the little details in our last review of Shadows of Mordor. I said that the visuals of the game were beautiful.
There's one more thing I gotta call out.
One more thing I gotta call out.
When you step in a fucking puddle, have it like ripple, please. Final Fantasy 13 on PS3 did this. You have entire sections where you run on the beach. You don't leave footprints. I had that in literally PS2 games. And now in the Order, one of the greatest looking games I've ever seen. There are several sections because it's London, it's wet, there are puddles on the ground, you step in them and you hear a splash, but there's no ripple effect, it's like glass.
Hey, you know what? At least that's a step up from infamous Second Son, where when you stepped in puddles, not only was it glass, but there was no sound at all. I mean, it sounded like running on asphalt when you're walking over a puddle. So, I mean, progress. I mean, we're still early in the gen, right?
Well, I mean, this is 2 gens ago, and we had developments of this in PS2 games.
I know. Okay, so, weapons. Okay, so the weapons in the game, with the exception of a couple, I thought were pretty boring. I mean, the carbine you get, it's a carbine. It's a single-shot bolt action, kill stuff. None of the pistols I thought were any cool. They have a couple gimmicky ones, but the
revolver that fires 2 shots at once.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it. My favorite handgun in the game was just the simple revolver that fired 1 shot.
Yeah, Percival's revolver.
Yeah, that was the best. That was the best revolver in the game. All the other handguns you get, very.
Well, I ended up using them because the handguns are just as strong as any other gun in the game.
Oh, if you shoot something in the face,
if you shoot someone in the head, it goes down, and the handguns hold so much ammo and they shoot so fast that I ended up using the pistol for almost all my kills in the game, unless it was like a power enemy that has the armor. I will say the shotgun in that game is probably the best shotgun I've ever seen because the particle effects when it like launches its shells.
It's ridiculous.
Like smoke, and you see the powder, and you see the fire coming off it.
And it's
legitimately good.
And it's the only firearm in the game that has gore if you shoot an enemy with it. Like you can actually blow chunks of limbs off and stuff. And it is the most OP shotgun I've ever played in a video game. Like Halo's shotgun is a spitwad launcher compared to the Order 1886's shotgun. That thing can just take a man apart from across a room.
It does have ridiculous range.
It does. It has ridiculous, especially because the animation, like when it shoots and like the effect, it looks like this huge cone coming out. It's a very large blast.
It is.
But you can still just mangle an enemy that's like 50, 60 feet away from you.
But that's where the compliments kind of end. The grenade launcher was underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't think I used grenades at all.
The thermite gun, I love the idea of it, but it was a piece of crap in use. Well, I mean, some people may like. I didn't care for the art gun. I thought it was like, okay, the Order, as much as I loved certain aspects of it, and obviously I hated other aspects. The thing I hated most was like, it's like, this is so good looking. Let's do this stuff with alternate history, but let's shoehorn in as many video game breaking elements as we can. Lockpicking minigames, we got it.
I know.
Yes. Freaking the electrical sockets, we got it.
Yeah,
the freaking red barrels of doom, we got them. It's
okay, that's not the Order though. But yes, I was horrified and also amused the first time I saw an explosive red barrel. I was like, really? I mean, this game is just visually so well done. I mean, it's like every model in that game is. You can tell it's just deliberately placed. So why do we have explosive red barrels? It's like they almost have. It's like you hope they did it like as a joke. Like they did it with a sense of humor. Because if they did that as like, well, clearly in order to get past this section, we need to include explosive barrels. It's like, No, you really didn't, because I went through the whole game without ever actually... No, I shot one out of curiosity to see if it would explode. But other than that, I avoided them out of principle. Essentially, I was like, I'm not utilizing the explosive red barrel. I'm not going to do it. I feel like we should be in a time in gaming where we're past explosive red barrels. I mean, you should be able to design a fighting section of a game to where there's enough other things going on or enough other options to where you don't need to utilize obviously clumsily placed explosives. And it's like, you're supposed to know in this world. I mean, you're supposed to know these barrels are explosive, hence like the big like warning danger sign on the barrels. And yet it's kind of funny how enemies in every game, not this isn't just the Order, any game with explosive barrels at all, enemies will congregate to these barrels. It's like the enemies are just like, well, let's use that thing as cover. They just swarm to it.
Not to mention, it's always in the enemy locations. Like, it'd be nice for once if you ran out into a fight and there was a red barrel
by you,
because you don't expect it, and then had the enemy shoot it every time just to fuck with you and kill you. So at least for once, it's like the enemy at least made use of the red barrels instead of being like, you know what? I love the color red, and there's no way you're gonna be able to shoot through that.
To it. I know. All right, so multiplayer, none whatsoever. Replayability, unless you're a trophy fiend, no replayability.
Or if you really love the story, I guess, I mean, there are little elements of
yeah,
that
but I mean, any game is replayable if you like the story.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, as far as any motivation, like a New Game Plus feature or anything that you can go back and do the second time around.
After Batman showed up at the end of the game, I definitely did not have interest in doing so.
I'm Batman, yeah.
Okay, he pretty much does.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Not, I mean, he doesn't like be like,
he doesn't actually literally say,
but
I am the Batman. But he is like, I'm totally the Batman.
He goes renegade vigilante, puts on all black. Yeah.
I honestly was surprised that he didn't call himself like Van Helsing or something, because he looks like Hugh Jackman.
That would have tripped me up. It's like, not only do we have like alternate universes, now you're tying in Van Helsing too. I think my mind would have been blown right there. I'd be like,
at least he would have salvaged the ending, because the ending was so like, really?
Okay,
what if he just kind of was almost like, he's like, I am Van Helsing? That would have been like, it's tongue-in-cheek, so I could
or like
it.
His name before he became a knight, his last name was Van Helsing. He was Grayson Van Helsing, but he took on the last name of Galahad. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Anyway, so without going into too much of the story, so the Order 1886, little replay value. The story we are highly divisive on. All in all, it's like, the Order 1886 has a lot of flaws. I personally enjoyed the game. I liked the intellectual property of it. I liked the ideas it presented. But in my mind, I'm sort of equating it as I'm more gentle on the game, not necessarily because I disagree with Beth. Everything Beth is saying about the game in terms of its flaws is true. It's just it presented a lot of things I really liked, and I give the game a lot of positive vibe because I want them to build on that. I want to see an improvement. It's like if the Order 1886 is the first clumsy installment of what could be better, I'm really excited because I like the groundwork they've laid. I like the world that they've created for that groundwork. I would actually like to see that story pick up and move. I'd like to see what happens with the Order, with the rest of the Knights. I'd like to see what happens with the with the United India Company, and if the spread of the lichens and vampires and stuff like that. It's like I'd kind of like to see where that goes. I mean, I would definitely want to see the gameplay mechanics develop a lot. I would really want to see a lot more variation in the kinds of gameplay and stuff. But I think that potential is all there. And I know it's not really fair to rate a game based on its potential as opposed to what it is, but that's sort of what my defense has been for this whole time. So, all in all, I liked it. I want to see where it goes. Has its flaws, not going to lie. But out of a 5-star system, I'm, for the Order, going to give it a 3. I want to say 3.5, but I can't justify that really. So I'm going to say
the same score as Mordor. Really?
Yeah,
wow, that is okay.
I want to give it more than that, but I'm going to say 3 stars. You, what are your final closing thoughts on the Order 1886?
I give that a 2.
2?
A 2, and the only reason why I'm doing it is because of the visuals and because of Lucan.
See,
if it was not for Lucan, that would be getting like a 1.5. I firmly believe Ready at Dawn has some amazing writers on that staff, but I swear the only one they really put any real love and attention into is the character of Lucan. And
I just don't see how you say that. All right, so that's all we have to say about the Order 1886. Try it for yourself, see what you think. Please feel free to leave your feedback in the comments section below. If you want to support Different Beat and want to see more of our videos, please feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, check back for new uploads every Sunday. I'm Tim.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And thank you for watching.